Cool, thank you very much. So, yeah, as I was introduced, my name's Tim Willis. I'm the Chief Operations Officer at Aerobotics. And we are a company that is focused on improving yields, mainly through pest and disease management, using drone imagery and artificial intelligence as kind of our tools to get there. And I think a big part of what I'm going to chat about tonight is really how do we embrace Agritech, not just our product, but I suppose a lot of products across the market, and how do we really, what are the challenges, what are the barriers that we're seeing, what are our colleagues seeing? I think a lot of them were touched on in the earlier presentation, and yeah, really how can we move this forward? So I know we've got a couple of our clients with us tonight, so it's very grateful that you're here. Thank you for coming through. Marina's from Idea Fruit, one of our biggest partners in terms of going through this challenge with us and really like embracing probably a lot of what we're talking about tonight. Cool. So I wanted to frame the discussion a little bit, and this quote just hit me. And I think really Agritech is about efficiency, and how do we improve efficiency on the farm, and we have to almost improve efficiency over time, because there's just going to be so many more people on the world, like on the earth, and they're all going to need food, and we're going to need to become more efficient in terms of how we really figure out how to feed all of these people and keep everybody going. So there are a couple of key themes that I'm going to talk through this evening. Firstly, sorry, we've got this thing popping up let's just cancel that. Otherwise it's going to be there the whole night and irritate us. So firstly, what are the benefits of fully embracing Agritech? So kind of what are the key benefits that we see as Aerobotics and from our discussions with farmers? And then something that I'm extremely passionate about is like product engagement. So how does product engagement really build our own product? So it's not just, we don't see a world where we just build a product and then, it works. We see a world where as people engage with it, it builds itself and it improves over time. And I want to talk a bit about how we see that happening. Some of the barriers that we see stopping this process from taking place as fast as we would like, specifically as Aerobotics. How we as Aerobotics see a lot of that benefit working with our own product, and then what we're doing to solve some of these challenges. So those are kind of the key things that I'm going to be talking through this evening. So firstly, we're obviously aiming at yields. Two reasons why we're doing this. One, higher yields probably equal higher profits. And secondly, high yields probably equal more food, more resources for everybody. Fewer middlemen, so often there's a lot of people going like between the farm and the actual person who eats the last, eats the fruit or the nuts or whatever it is, and how do we like compact that through technology? Enhanced information, this allows us to give greater access to finance and insurance. So a lot of the farm at the moment is a black box in terms of what's actually going on real time. In all our discussions with the banks, and Nedbank's one of our big partners, they've actually got an investment in our business. It's really about looking at historical data, and we're saying, how do we change that? If you're, with Discovery Health, for instance, on the medical aid front, you are, getting rewarded almost in real time in terms of how healthy you are and how active you are and how kind of fit you are. And we're saying, how can we take those principles onto the farm and almost reward people in real time for having a healthy farm and a healthy crop? And then finally, we believe that increased certainty in the market from farmers in terms of knowing what's happening in their yields, in terms of having better access to finance and insurance, will lead to better investment from those farmers. So the more information that's available, the more people will actually invest in their establishment, and that will be good for all of us as we look to solve that overall problem. And Twiga Foods is an ag tech startup based out of Kenya, which is really interesting, and they actually have created this whole marketplace around the sale of bananas. So basically getting them from the farm onto the street and really like operationalizing that and making it a lot quicker and a lot easier for people selling in markets to actually acquire these bananas and people farming the bananas to actually sell them. So kind of have created this whole link. And I think what Grant here, who's the CEO, is really talking about is like as soon as there's more information in the marketplace, as soon as both sides have visibility, both sides invest. So farmers start like growing more bananas, and the market, the people selling these bananas actually invest and build stores and invest in equipment, etc., because there's more certainty. So it speaks to a few of those points. So product engagement, and this is something that, as I say, like exceptionally passionate about and something that we talk about every day at Aerobotics is how do we get more people using our product, and what is the benefit for the actual users of the product when we do that. So the first thing is when most assets are used, they're depleted, whereas data is almost the inverse of that. So the more data you have, the more powerful an asset becomes. And so as you add more data to a data set, your systems, your algorithms actually become smarter. So that's sort of the first principle. The second one is the way we acquire data at Aerobotics is that we acquire users, and then those users actually use our platform. So for instance, it's one thing for us to go and fly a drone flight and capture some data and present back some results to the farmer, but that's not very useful unless the farmer is actually digging in and going to the trees that we've identified as being stressed or being under pressure, and going and actually annotating those data points. So visiting those trees using our app that we've got, it's a bit like Google Maps for your farm. It can take you to the individual stressed trees, and you can go and tell us what's wrong with those trees and keep those notes for yourself. And as we start to get more and more of that data, our algorithms become smarter. So instead of in the future telling you just there's a stressed tree, we might actually tell you what disease that tree has just from visual imagery from above, because we've labeled enough data points on the ground. And that goes to my next point. So the more data you have, the stronger your product is, and the stronger your product is, the more people use your product. And the higher the product engagement is. At the end of the day, user attention is a finite resource, and everyone's competing. We're competing against Facebook and Instagram for your time. So hopefully, we have a little bit of it. And when we've got a little bit of your time, hopefully our experience and the product that you're using from the Aerobotics front is really useful and something that's engaging. And then finally, we believe that people will only use our product if they actually see value in it. So paying us is one thing to use our product, but what we track almost more importantly than revenue is actually whether people are using the product, whether they're going on scouting missions, whether they're logging in after we've actually flown data and presented that data to them. Because if that's not happening, it means that we have a value proposition problem. And so we're really trying to work on these problems, and a lot of our user interface and user experience testing is around, hey, we flew this mission for you and we presented this data back, and you didn't use it. Why? What happened? Where did we go wrong? What did we miss? Was it timing? Was it not useful? Did you go to the trees and they weren't sick? What was the problem? And really trying to make sure that that value loop is there, because for as long as that is there, we won't have to worry about people, wanting to use our product. And I think that goes to probably every product in the world, and I'll take you through a few examples. So this is what we call the data flywheel, and this is something that we use every day. So you can start at any point, but if I start kind of at more data, the more data you have, the smarter your algorithms get. The smarter your algorithms, the better your product. The better your product, the more users, and this thing gets faster and faster and faster as you add into this. And that's really what we've seen at Aerobotics. So for instance, over the first 4 years of our business, at the end of July last year, we had managed to collect in our database 5 million trees. So we'd done surveys and identified from above using our AI 5 million trees. This morning we released the 19 millionth tree. So in just under 6 months, we nearly 4 times the size of our business because of this flywheel. As we got more data in, our algorithms are getting smarter. We identify trees from above much better. We provide much more useful information. and we're starting to produce a better product because of that. And for sure, like this flywheel is not a perfect wheel that goes round and round. That definitely, sometimes you feel like you're pushing like a weight over the edge, but this is something that we are working towards with our business. So there are clear benefits when you do get the data flywheel right, and I'll just take you through a couple, specifically in social media, so something that we probably all know a little bit about. So firstly, 23 billion devices in the world that are connected to the internet, but only like 6 billion people, so there's many more devices than people. There's about 3.5 billion people active on social media, so putting information into these social media platforms, and because of that, they're getting lots and lots of data, and that's why Facebook and Instagram and these things are such a great experience, because in the background, they have all these kind of AI learning experiences. And you know, social networks are starting to use this to really become profitable. So it's, for them, the first part of this was not about creating a revenue stream. The first part was creating a product that we love to use. And we all go on Facebook not because we want to see an ad, but because it's useful and we want to see what our friends are doing. This advertising stream is kind of like a secondary add-on to the flywheel once it works. So for us at Aerobotics, it's more about how do we build this flywheel and how do we get our product really working before we figure out the rest of like how can we actually use that information to generate these profits. So Facebook, this is a great example, as you know, 66% of monthly users are on the platform every day. Okay, so like they've got probably over 1 billion users at the moment. I think I heard that stat the other day, and 66% of those people log in every single day to use their product. That's amazing engagement stats. And you know, at Aerobotics, if we could have everyone who's using our product log in half of that amount, you know, we would be extremely excited. 6 new profiles every second. Google, 100 billion searches every month. And that means that 40,000 search queries are happening every second. So again, like so much more information, that the algorithms are becoming smarter. I mean, it's so easy for them to predict what you're typing in, because so many other people are typing in similar stuff to surface the articles and the information that is, you know, most relevant at that point in time. And again, it goes back to this data flywheel. Instagram, 800 million monthly users. And then Facebook Messenger and WhatsApp, 60 billion messages a day. So, I mean, and just some things that are like, that you might have noticed over the last little while. I mean, things like predictive text and kind of these little things, it all comes back to this. Previously, before I joined Aerobotics, I was at Uber. And I mean, a couple of big things that we did during my time at Uber, not that I was responsible, but things like pickup locations, okay? So when we started, the app was kind of like a bit clunky, and you know, it was great. You got a car somewhere around your area, you know, and it was sort of relevant and much better than a taxi service, so it started to work. But today, you basically go online and it opens up and it drops your pin almost right to the front door of a location. So it picks up that you're in here, and it knows that the front door's 10 meters down that way because 20 other people have been picked up there today. And it uses that information to learn where's the best pickup location, what's happening. It's learning on route planning for drivers, which is the best way. So often you'll see sometimes your trips switch driver because the driver's going the wrong way in the traffic. Because there's been enough data go through the system that they've started to learn that at this time of day, the drivers are like, they're going to get stuck, and a driver going in the other direction is better. And this all comes just from having enough data. If you've only got one car doing that route every day, you're not going to really have enough data. But if you have hundreds of, you know, thousands of trips, which is what we were doing, you suddenly have enough data to kind of predict these things. So some of the barriers that we see with Agritech, I think sometimes the value proposition can be unclear to a farmer. Like, I think it's sometimes difficult. I mean, for instance, myself as someone who hasn't been a farmer before, and I identified a lot with your presentation, coming in and trying to explain why I think that something could be done better is like really difficult. And to be honest, I probably don't have the experience and the knowledge. I think it's one of the great things about Aerobotics is that James Patterson, who's our CEO, grew up on the farm. His dad's still a farmer in citrus dole, and so there's a lot of kind of experience, and I mean his dad's our biggest critic in terms of telling us what's wrong all the time, which is great. We need the feedback to improve, but so I think we've got a little bit of that, but it is something that we struggle to do and struggle to identify those pain points clearly, especially when we're sitting in an office in Woodstock in Cape Town, with a whole lot of developers and coders who are city-based. How do we actually get this right? And I think that this is something that every agri-tech startup in the world has struggled with. You haven't really seen too many billion-dollar agri-tech startups yet, and it's because they're struggling, I think, somewhat with this problem. A lot of equipment on the farm isn't yet connected. So you hear about like the Internet of Things, and you go into an office and everything's connected to the internet, all these 23 billion devices. Whereas still there is equipment on the farm that isn't connected yet. So it's still manually operated and manually done. And so it's hard to come in and suddenly say, we want to integrate things, or if only your plow or this was, connected to the internet, it would be easier. So these things are considered barriers. Farmers tend to be sensitive about privacy issues, especially putting their credit card into our system. Trust me, it's okay, but no, I'm joking. But yeah, I mean, this is kind of the kind of thing that we are dealing with on a regular basis. Is what's going to happen? How's this going to impact my farm? Who's going to get access to this information? We have situations where different farming groups don't necessarily want to work with us because we might be working with a competitor, and what happens? And everybody's on Facebook, but suddenly when it comes to us, they think we're going to share their data, which is not necessarily what's going to happen. And then there are many different platforms. So everybody's gone in, and there's no single platform for agri-tech at the moment. So you're using lots of different software, and a lot of the concerns we see on the farm when we talk to people is, we love your product, but we've already got 6 systems. How are we going to now operate on the 7th system? How are we going to bring this into our daily routine? And it is a big problem, but for us, it's something that we grapple with every day, because do we try and go and start integrating with everybody and pulling data in, or do we build the best-in-class pest and disease system that we can? And so our approach has kind of been, we're going to build the best system and hopefully be at the top of your list of systems that you're going to use, and we'll worry about the rest later. So I suppose quickly just walking through how we benefit from product engagement. So I mean, this is a stat that we work towards. About 15 to 20% of yield is lost every year on the farm, especially on fruit and nut farms, just from pest and disease. So this is a big problem to solve. We don't aim to solve 15% of this problem. We're probably going to aim to solve 1 or 2 of these percent, hopefully, and that's a big saving to most farmers. How do we feel that this comes from, or where do we feel that this problem comes from? 4 main areas in our minds. Partial coverage of the field, so not having regular, updated, high resolution imagery that helps you manage your farm. Low accuracy, so at the moment you're dealing with multiple different systems, you're not really sure where things are. Farming is usually on a huge scale, it's difficult to get to every single tree. Per tree analytics is something that you need, but it's expensive to get it on a regular basis. Lack of trust between teams, and just in terms of how record keeping is done, and this sort of speaks to the poor documentation point, and probably to your earlier conversation. We've got a lot of things. I mean, we go into farms sometimes and we see all the scouting being done on a whiteboard, and we're like, oh my goodness, how's this all being recorded into, someone could just wipe it off. What happens with the database? We could save it somewhere and keep it and teach an algorithm how to, help us. So it's those sorts of problems that we think cause these type of issues. So our solution is really about monitoring every tree. So once we've identified from above the individual trees, our software is basically recreating a 3D model of each tree. We then overlay health indices and determine heights and volumes, etc. This is quite a complex problem when you're doing millions of trees a day. I mean, at any given point in time, just for context, we are using 1,000 MacBook Pros computers in the cloud with Amazon. So we've got 1,000 of these things pumping, trying to generate 3D images, etc. And once we get this, then that's how we get our individual metrics. And we've then got individual metrics on each individual tree, which you can then look at over time. And this is also how we're trying to work out what's useful, what isn't useful, etc. And this is really how we are building the data flywheel into our product. So we fly the drone over, we identify that there's some, stress trees. With our smartphone application, we're hoping that people go out and really identify this, and we're starting to integrate AI there. So instead of you having to plan your own scout route now, we are proposing or recommending suggested scout routes based on all the different metrics. So we've taught our algorithms, we've now got enough trees that we've been able to, and enough scout routes having been completed, that we are able to teach the computer, really where are points of interest for the farmer. So get out there and then put it into this reporting. Once we have this information back, we keep on putting the information back and basically reteaching our algorithms. So every 2 weeks, we go through a cycle where we reteach all of our algorithms effectively. So we take all the new data points that we have on any individual tree, and we run that back through the system again and again to get smarter and better at this problem over time. And it goes back to this data flywheel. So as we get in more data, algorithms get smarter to identify trees, smarter at identifying pests and diseases. That makes our product better, and then we do see more people coming online and using the product. So some of our sort of creative solutions to trying to solve product engagement and how do we get more people engaged in using this product. So firstly, building trust. So this is a big one in our mind, is like we need to be on the farm, and we've got an agronomy team that is spending a lot of time on the farm collecting data, going and like validating, are the things that we're finding correct? And we've actually just taken this to the next level. So we're bringing in, whenever you want to scale something in a business, you need to look at a way to like almost bring in the gig economy. So we're looking at ways that we can, bring in lots more workers to do this work much more quickly, because we're limited by the number of employees we have. So how do we, create Uber drivers to validate this data effectively, that independent operator model? And we feel that a big part of this is also some of the validation that we've got in the media. So, I mean, here's a picture of James, and he was on a plane. He got one of those free newspapers, and he opened it, and he saw an ad of us, so he was quite surprised. We're offering free trials so that people really get a taste of how it all works. Holding events to really explain what's happening. So we hold a lot of events. I think this month alone we're doing 25 different events throughout the country. Today we're averaging 3 events across the world. Just in terms of getting the team out, talking to different people, and really finding out what's going on. There. We're listening to farmers, so we're getting out. This is Alphonse Visser from the Northern Cape. He's the biggest pecan nut farmer there. Really getting out, trying to listen to their stories, finding out what's going on. Holding roundtable webinars. So Marinus was part of this, where we're like having these discussions and allowing everybody to dial in and really access it. And then doing some of the more creative stuff where we're showing the future. So this is a farmer trying our visual reality or our virtual reality glasses at an event. You basically, once you put those on, you feel like you're the drone. You get a bit seasick because you think you... We are rolling out a retail strategy in a lot of co-op stores, so working with trusted co-ops to really bring this product out, and also producing a lot of manuals and content to really help the farmers. So going past like tech. So we've, everybody, the dream is always to be online and everything's there. But we know that not everybody's online yet, and people want something more tangible that they can go back to, make notes, and so we've developed a lot of these manuals, etc. So yeah, I think I'll just end off with this quick little video that talks a bit about what we're doing in the future and how we see the future. Woo. And technology, sometimes it's everyone.
Often we think of the future as something far away, distant, forever around the corner, until it catches up to us. We can't predict the future, but we can prepare for it. Imagine you could determine if a single tree or an entire field was pest-ridden, diseased, or in need of attention from the touch of a screen. What would you do today to fix tomorrow if you knew how? Imagine if an application automatically planned a scout route for a drone to assess potential threats in your field and diagnose the pest or disease causing stress. All without leaving your home. Imagine a tomorrow free of yesterday's limitations. The truth is, you don't have to imagine, because with Aerobotics' new innovations, the future is within your grasp. Today brings a new dawn. Tomorrow is now.